The following content is provided by MIT OpenCourseWare under a Creative Commons license. Additional information about our license and MIT OpenCourseWare in general is available at ocw.mit.edu.
Okay, the idea is to talk about the exercise of yesterday. No? The exercise was not easy. It was very complex for some people. And but it was very instructive, the exercise. Its difficulties also were very instructive. At the exposition I made before the exercise, I forgot the last slides, to explain the last slide for you. And the last slide was about how to do the exercise and some requirements for doing it. Yeah? And I think that now they may sound for you thinking in the exercise. These requirements are took from the text of Sean and Chris Argyris named Model 2, Behavior Model 2. I don't know if you remember this reading. I put it as optional, but it's a very good explanation about two attitudes of learning we may have, of behavior and learning. And from the Model 2, I extract what I thought should be more important for you. The first condition for doing this kind of work we made yesterday, of discovering theories in use, is one, commitment with discovery. We need to be very interested in understanding what the theory is. The second thing is, a very important feature is to be open enough to accept to discuss one's idea publicly. It's public testing of theories, assumptions, and data. We need to be enough open to accept this discussion. It's my idea, but I will discuss with everyone. It's not easy. The Delphi method, one of the reasons why people don't know the others in the Delphi method is because for these people it's very difficult to discuss their ideas with their peers. Each one of them are very important people, and they don't like to step back respect to an idea if they publicly defended it. So for making more easy for them to be flexible, they don't know who is giving opinions about their ideas. One condition to discover theories in use is this attitude. The third, it's a bit subtle, but it's also very important, is the separation between the self and the idea. It may sound very rare, but when we create an idea, we feel that the idea is our idea, and in some sense that this idea is ourself, as is a product that is part of ourselves. For being more capable of learning about what we have produced, we need to separate our ideas from ourself. We need to leave the idea to live or to die by themselves. It doesn't matter if the idea was created by me or by any other person. The idea in itself is something like a living object. I will not fight for her. Okay? It's very different from people who are trained in arguing for defending their ideas. In this case, the best attitude is not to defend one's idea. It's to put one's idea at the side and to look at the most objectively we can do. And so we can have many ideas. One of them was originated in my mind. The other ideas were originated by other people, were created by other people, and I will just compare them. Okay? I will just compare them without no reference from whom they have come up. Okay? The first component that Sean and Chris RG found is to look for valid information. In the exercise you had yesterday, you had not enough information for doing this step adequately. Okay? So it was not possible to go to the exercise completely because we had not enough information for improving our theory of in use. Okay? And the last one is the capacity for reframing. The capacity for reframing is very interesting. Is to be able to see one's idea to be dismantled in front of one and not be afraid about that. The mind has a characteristic described by Ilya Prigogine, a Nobel Prize in chemistry. He explained that the mind is a self-organizing system. So the mind always will create a logic. It's impossible for the mind to live without logic. If I destroy a theory that I have in my mind, I will feel very disturbed for a while. But after a while, my mind reconstructs a new logic. And Edward de Bono explaining how to increase creativity in people, he suggests the use of some statement that disturbs the ideas people have in their minds for enable them to be able to create new logics. His method, lateral thinking, I don't know if you have listened about lateral thinking, is this idea, how to disturb the idea, the way we are thinking for being able to discover new ways of thinking about an object. When we are working with people, something that we need to do, a facilitator, is always to disturb people. Each people support us a level of disturbance. Thank you very much. Each people have a level of disturbance they may support without stress. Okay? So we need to graduate this. But it's something that we always need to do with people is to disturb in some level their thinking model. Okay?
Sebastiao, would you say His name was Ilya
Prigogine.
Priguci.
Prigo. I think that's Gyne.
Gyne.
I think so.
Okay.
Okay, but if you go to internet, okay, Nobel Prize, Ilya is I-L-I-A. Ilya.
And it was the lateral thinking, you said was the technique? Lateral thinking?
Lateral thinking is Edward de Bono. He's an expert about creativity. He's from Malta.
And when you say the facilitator's role is to disturb people, and each person has a level of disturbance they can support without stress, is it always good to not get them stressed? Because if you want to make really big change, like I was reading about the South African Truth and Reconciliation Commission. I mean, it's hard to imagine doing the process of post-apartheid and figuring out what the country's going to look like without stress for people.
Yes. It's a decision. You need always to gauge, to compare your objective, okay, and at the same time, the level of stress people is able to support. Because if people will not support the level of stress that you produce in them, you cannot work with them. You will produce a problem, okay? So it's better to work with another people to go forward. But in some cases, it's very difficult. We need to increase the level until observing the capacity of reaction people have. Because as you are more disruptive, you get more new ideas in the process.
And then it seems to me then that the role of the facilitator is keeping as high a level of stress as possible while not making everyone break down.
Exactly, something like that. Something like that.
And that's the art.
This is one. Yes, this is one of the roles of the facilitator. Okay. Yeah, one of the roles. Yes.
But some methods encourage excessive stress to break down. For example, people take corporate executives out to the woods and totally stress them out so that they can break down and then are able to reorganize their thinking and their behavior. So it just depends on what stress is appropriate to your instance.
Yes. And we are talking about the stress of reframing, not the stress of everyday life, that we need to change the kind of stress, the reasons to go to some place. I began to explain these ideas, and I spent more time than I was assumed to use. Can you talk about the exercise of yesterday?
I think first it would be good to just clarify what the methodology of the exercise was.
Okay.
There were two distinct phases in the exercise. The first phase was to we needed an object of analysis. Okay, and that object of analysis was some sort of espoused theory that we were going to analyze in order to identify that theory in use, the more tacit theory that guides our actions. So the problem was not, we gave you a problem so that you could identify some sort of solution or strategy, which was going to be the object of analysis. The second phase of the exercise was to put the problem aside, really, and just look at what was behind our reasoning when we defined the problem as we did, and then determine the solution that we did. So then we had to operate in a different level of analysis, where we were really trying to get into the minds of the groups that were presented. So the second phase, what we were trying to do was become aware of the assumptions, like that there are assumptions in our reasoning and our logic. And then also train ourselves to think of questions that help people identify those assumptions. And lastly, we were looking at how identifying the assumptions themselves, like trying to do that. And so if you look at some of the results of what you came up with, I mean, you were, for the first group, a major assumption was the police, that there's some sort of racial profiling at the police level. So police pay more attention to black people than whites, or white kids that get caught don't enter the system, don't get referred to the juvenile court system. For the second group, you had some interesting assumptions here about prevention. The idea that prevention will reduce, like if you give people more choices, there will be less likely to commit crimes or to choose crime. Or if you don't have other choices, you will choose crime. These were some of the assumptions. And for the last group, you had an interesting assumption, which was if your basic material needs are met, then people are less likely to commit a crime. So that's just we got to identify the assumptions. Now, if you look at that last slide that Sebastiao presented yesterday, there were certain steps for you to identify that theory in use. And the first step was to identify the assumptions behind the logic of that espoused theory, the strategy that you say you're taking to solve a specific problem. What we didn't get to do, which we can do at another time if we want, is to actually see how the assumptions, what the sequence of the assumptions are. Because through that exercise you can get to that underlying theory, the theory in use. So just to get you, and just so you know that we started to try to get at that theory in use, but we haven't finished. So at some point we could try to complete the exercise one afternoon, either this afternoon or sometime next week if this is of interest to you. But I think we didn't make that explicit, we just kind of threw you in the exercise and you went through it without really knowing what the process was like. So I think it may be helpful for you to know what that was. So now we were interested in knowing what your impressions were, like how you feel about yesterday's exercise.
Claudia, just for putting in graphically what you have said, the first part of the exercise was the creation of an object. The object was an espoused theory about the issue. The second part of the exercise was the analysis of this object. And these are very different activities. We had planned a third part that was not possible to carry on, is the discovery of the theory in use. We stopped the exercise here. No? And for the participants was not clear in some cases the kind of analysis we were doing here and the kind of analysis where we were doing the second part. Okay.
So how do you feel about yesterday's exercise?
That was great. Helpful to see kind of all the underlying cognitive processes and biases that we all have. I mean, I don't mean bias in a negative way, but it's just we all go in with a particular frame, and we have the same one sheet of data, and you get all of this off of that. I think it's pretty illustrative of how complex we are on any.
I think in this part sometimes it was difficult because we are so attached. I mean, the problem is a problem that we feel very strongly about. It causes us to, and it's very emotional for a lot of people. And so often we just kept going back to analyze the problem instead of remaining at just analyzing the espoused theory, but remaining at a more cognitive level. We just kept going back to the problem at times. So.
Here the analysis is of the social issue. Here the analysis is of the underlying logic. We were thinking about the social issue. No? We have these two moments. I think that we can go forward. Okay? Okay, thank you very much. Now we will make a very interesting exercise. I will make a very brief presentation before that, okay? And we will make an exercise with Ezra. We was working with him today very early. And after that, we will make an exercise among all us. Can you project?
And we need to close the shades too.
Yes, should be good. Yes.
It'll be short.
Yeah. Okay. Can you project? In the course, we have planned to talk with you about virtual worlds today, but we expanded the concept for talking about virtual worlds and mental models. Okay? The concept of mental models that we will use is concrete mental models. It's not exactly the same concept that Peter Senge uses in his book, The Fifth Discipline. In his book, Peter Senge defined mental model as a framework that we use for understanding situations, a general framework. And we apply this same framework in different situations. And the case that we will consider now are models that we construct in our mind for specific tasks. And we always associate this kind of virtual worlds and mental models with computers. But most of the cases we have them in our mind, and we use it every day. Okay?
It's almost like an algorithm or a heuristic to deal with a particular situation.
Yes. The group of algorithms we use. No? The most easy to understand is the design of an architect. He makes the design, but he don't see the design. He doesn't see the design. What he sees is the building. He works with the building in his mind, with an image of the building in his mind. He uses the lines just for stimulate his imagination. Okay? He take a look, when he looks the design, the image of the building grows clear in his mind. Okay? And when they talk among them, they are talking about not of the design, not of the drawing, but they are talking about the images they have in their minds. In the book, Reflective Practitioner, they use very telegraphic communication. The only way that this telegraphic communication may work is because they share the same image of the building. And the architect evaluates how his design is evolving using his image in his mind. He compares his image with some values or some criteria or some expectation that he has for his building. Okay? He always works with this. We common people who are not trained in this, perhaps someone of you are, I am not, we need not a virtual object, we need a small building to look at for stimulate our mind, okay? But they don't need the object, they just need some small lines and the image comes up in their minds. Okay, they have this kind of training, okay? The psychologist, he has a much more abstract model in his mind. Indeed, I try to explain, he works with three models. One is, he has a portfolio of cases of disease. When he talks with the client at the first opportunity, he tries to compare the case, some features of the case, with his portfolio. After a time, he selects one and he says, this case is A32. Okay? After that, he will work with this case in his mind. He has a model of the disease, and he introduced the particularities of the client, and he works with this model in his mind. When he's talking with the client, each phrase of the client goes through this model and is interpreted through this model. The main tool that he uses is this model. If things do not work, he needs to come to his model and change his model to make it more robust. Okay? Okay. The dentist. The dentist is drilling our tooth. Okay? It's not agreeable, something like that. But I asked my dentist, what are you saying when you are drilling my tooth? And she explained to me very clearly. She said, I see a very big image of your tooth. A big tooth, and each touch I make in your tooth, I connect this touch with my image. I imagine that the drill is in some place of the image I have. And based on this image, I press in one direction or in another direction. So she has a mechanism for interpreting the touch. I talking with another dentist, and he informed me that now they are creating a very small camera with optic fiber that it's possible to put inside the tooth and to project it in a big screen. So the kind of image that some people uses in their mind, they are creating technology for make it easier, no, the use. Okay? MIT. Yesterday we were talking about this. Each student has a map of MIT. Okay? And it depends on the quality of the maps, the capacity of the person for take initiative here. If I know where the resources are and where are the people that can enable these resources for me, I can make much more actions. If I don't know where the resources are, or I don't know people to talk with, to ask them to access to these resources, I stay immobilized. Okay? Throughout the year, we try to improve this model as fast as possible. It would be great to compare different models of MIT, maps of MIT each one of us have. And we can see the kind of initiative we are able to do based on these different maps. Okay? Okay. And this is a description, very simplified, of the process. One is to identify the image we have, okay? If it is an image, and describe it. After we make a very brief description of this image, we need to go through the use, how we use this image. Because analyzing the use, we identify the functional components of this image. Okay? The use is an activity. We can analyze this activity, why we make this particular use, why we go to some places for making this activity, and we may discover the function of this place, if it is a place or a person. So the method is to reconstruct the action and analyze the action, okay, for discovering the functions of the components of the model. If it's abstract, it's very similar, but we need a concrete case and go through the case. How we used our framework in our mind for working on this case and began to represent these components. Okay? Do you understand that this is an activity that we need to do many times, no? It's not easy to just to describe it completely. We should improve it many times. That's all. I like to talk with you.
Can you explain why we want to know what our mental models are?
Yes. Why? No? Why are we expend our time in these questions? One is that when we are working with different people, we need to be able to understand their mental models. Because they are reasoning, they are talking with us, but they are reasoning with their mental models. And any word I say to them, they interpret my word, they give meaning to my word through their mental models. Okay? I may say the same phrase for different people, the same phrase, and they will interpret the phrase differently. So, for making possible, first of all, to communicate my ideas to the persons. The other thing is that we are not aware of our mental models. We are not aware, and people with whom we are working, they are not aware of their mental models. Okay? And I'm sure you are clear about that. The mental models are tacit. Okay? We just use them, but we don't understand their main features. So, the relation may evolve differently than planned. People may react in a way that I was not waiting, this kind of reaction. People may interpret our expressions in different way. Or people may persist in some kind of mistakes consistently, because the consistence of mistakes is a consequence of the kind of mental model that are being used. Okay? When you commit one mistake one time, there's no problem. No? When we commit the same mistake in a systematic way, we need to find which mental model we have in our minds. And we need, in most cases that we are working with people, helping them to change their life, to change the way they are tackling their problems, we need to work with mental models. So, mental models will be a main staff of our professional work. The other reason is that we can learn from their mental models. They may have a mental model better than ours. Okay? And it's very interesting because the mental model is a very important component of our intellectual capital, or of our cognitive resources as professionals. If we should make a stock of our cognitive resources that a professional has for doing his work, most of these cognitive resources are mental models. Yeah? The other one are portfolio of cases. The other one are some theories that the person is able to work with. No? People who can use math, or people who cannot use math, or people who can combine complex groups of variables, and people who can work just one or two variables. So the mental models are very important component of our resources for professional work. And we evolve professionally, evolving our mental models.
Do people have only a mental model and one mental model, or do they have several mental models? And if you have several, are they supposed to I mean, by experience, are they coherent? I mean, you know.
Okay, not necessarily.
Or they, you know.
These kind of mental models we are analyzing are operational. They use this, each one of them, for a kind of task.
And they can contradict.
They may have contradiction among them. Okay? No one is able to be absolutely coherent. So in some cases we are in one space and we are behaving based on the mental model of another space, and we begin to commit a lot of mistakes. Okay? After we can improve our model of this new space we are working in. Okay? What I think is that there is a basic coherence among them, but not a complete. Okay? Yes?
How do you identify a mental model, a specific mental model? How do you identify that person has one mental model and not the other?
Yeah. Okay, this is the exercise we will do in 5 minutes. It will be our intent. Okay? Because the best way to understand this is doing. It's like to ride a bike. Okay? There is no theory. We have just some steps, basic steps, and some control variables for that. Okay? Anything else? We can begin? Yeah. Today in the morning we have a long talk with Ezra, and he accepted to be the experiment for us. Okay? And what we will do, first of all, I think that should be good to explain what we have already advanced in some brief lines, no? For helping you to begin to play the role of facilitator. The role of OU will be to make questions to him for helping him to express his mental model. Okay? This will be our roles, and we will need to, in some way, to resist.
This will be his original mental model. This will be his mental model.
It's his mental model. Okay?
Is it possible to have everybody do their own mental model beforehand?
One exercise before to do with you.
Yeah, it would be really helpful for me, actually, if people were able to put together mental models of MIT campus before I tell them.
Okay.
Because and then if I could collect those at the end, it would actually be helpful for my thesis research.
It's not coherent.
Yes, it's very interesting because we worked on this MIT mental model without knowing. You didn't know that I had this example, no?
No,
he just proposed one, okay? Was very interesting. And I think that should be good if each one of you should try to write some elements. I can explain which elements you should write before to begin the exercise. I think it's a good idea for preparing oneself for playing the role of facilitator. We have already a name, okay? MIT mental model, okay?
For care folks, I think it may be, what should we give them? Because they don't have an MIT mental model.
But they have one. Not much complete, but they have. But you are correct. Perhaps should be easier for you to think about an object that you know better, so you can go forward easier in the description of your model. Okay, because our effort will be to identify the main features of these models. Okay, so you can use the building of the headquarters of Atlanta if you want.
I know MIT better than.
Great. Okay, you may decide. Okay, but the other people, everyone lives here. Okay, spend most of their time in this place. Okay.
What sort of mental model is just like where the resources and opportunities are on campus, or how it works, or who I know?
Okay. This is the question.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the framing question?
I think that his idea is very good. Without parameter, try you to describe with your words, okay, with your components.
Whatever we want.
Yes. About MIT. How you, what kind of image you create about MIT for moving here, for doing your work here.
And we don't have, I didn't print these slides, but maybe you can quickly write down the steps that you already said in your slide.
Can you just show it up on the screen again?
There it is. We can see it.
Yeah, we can see it like that. That's fine.
This is your part of it.
Now it is.
Con el ejercicio que he hecho con Ezra, lo tengo más desarrollado.
It helps a lot to think about your actions, like what you do.
Actually, that's an interesting creative thing. That's an interesting research.
This might be actually my next.
First is just to retrieve what we have in memory. Okay? Not try to interpret. Just to remember what I have in my memory about MIT. MIT, what I pronounce MIT and what comes up in my mind. I try to explain this. Okay? The second step is try to describe how I use it. What kind of actions I do here, in the case of you a bit in the south, and why I do this action in this place. The why of the use of this place is useful for discovering the function the place has for me. Okay? Yes?
This mental model should be of something physical, a building or...
For this case of exercise, I think that is easier. The mental model of a psychologist is much more a logic structure. It's much more abstract. It's difficult for a first exercise. I think that is not... No?
But no,
I don't understand physical.
It's not physical necessarily, though.
Oh, that's my
Could
question.
it be resources, departments, and people? And
Right, that's what he means.
I mean, that's more how I think of it.
Yeah. We
That's
work
the
about...
question. Looking up there to see. For an image like a building. Or number two, like a psychologist.
It's about the interpretation of a physical object. The interpretation. How
When
I'm...
you say physical, when you say MIT, you mean the institution.
Space.
Yes, no, but his interpretation is better. It's an institution that has a building.
Exactly.
Okay? But we are talking about the institution. Great.
So it's that concept.
We are not talking about only the building in itself. We are talking about the building and everything that happens here and every people who are working here. These are the components of what I will try to map, to construct a map. But we have a very clear physical reference in this case. No? It's not only the physical object, but we have a physical reference. If I try to... The dentist has a physical reference.
Huh?
The dentist. The driver of a truck, he has a physical reference of his image of the truck, of the rear of the truck. Okay? He uses always he's turning on the street. But the psychologists or the students of mathematics who are trying to go forward in the process of solution of a problem, the model they are using has no physical reference, are just concepts, structured. Concepts that are functional, that triggers operations, enable operations. Okay, make the effort, please. How long? 5 minutes? You are leaving?
I'm not feeling well.
Okay, thank you.
Is 5 minutes long enough?
Oh, she forgot.
You can write on these pieces of paper. That'd be great.
Can you make a graphic representation?
Yes, yes.
You don't need
Great.
to describe as words only. You can
Yes, the best should be the combination of a graphical representation and some words. It's the best method. Okay?
Words would be good.
To combine a graphical representation with some words. Okay?
Yeah, well, you have it.
Any more questions?
So I'm going to pause tape.
Huh?
Pause tape.
You're gonna pause it.
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes. We will begin with the presentation of Ezra. You use what you have learned in this brief exercise for making question to him. Okay, he will describe his model about MIT. Indeed, he will describe, he will reconstruct his model with us. Okay? So, we can begin. If you want to make some designs, some drawings, you have here. Okay, let's go.
Okay, so I've actually thought a bit about this before this class as well, so but it was good we spent a little time this morning and dug in a little deeper to work over here. So basically the way that I conceive of conceive, so to speak, my own cognition of my own mental map is that it all starts with a task or a series of tasks. So the first thing is figuring out what tasks I need to do. The second thing is figuring out what I need to do, what I need, what sorts of resources or facilities or groups of resources I need to accomplish those tasks. So, and then there's sort of a series of options that might rise. My different parts of my map are kind of illuminated based on this understanding of the tasks I have and the needs I have for accomplishing those various tasks. And then some sort of decision is made about where I go to accomplish those tasks. So my main interest in understanding this mental map is how I make those decisions to use a particular location on campus. So some sort of decision made there. And there are a number of different elements to this decision-making process. One is functional elements is the word we came up with this morning. One is people, and this is sort of a depending on what my task is, what my needs are. The people may be people I'm interested in socializing with, people I'm interested in working with or collaborating with, people who might be able to help me with a particular task. Maybe it's very specific people, like an administrative office or something I need to go to, or maybe it's more vague, like I need some designer who has experience with this particular software so that they can help me with something. Or maybe it's just I want to have lunch with someone. Another is the type of space. And how that space can meet my needs, the physical space, whether it's a classroom or whether it's a place I can eat lunch or a place where there's an Athena cluster or somewhere I can use my laptop, a number of different options, but the physical space. And then there's various specific resources that I might find in that space. And those resources might be a computer, it might be the ability to check out books, it might be a professor, it might be someone in the administration, it might be somewhere I can get a cup of coffee. And then there's sort of we came up with the idea of there's sort of facilities for tasks where, a library might serve might have multiple different resources all clustered together in such a way that it makes it an opportune location for me to perform a particular task. We call this facilities. Facilities for.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I have a question. This is totally unexpected for me. I thought he was going to show us his mental model, not tell us how to construct one. Or it's like, am I totally lost? I don't understand what's going on.
Okay, the idea was that he will present his mental model, but he's beginning for the abstract elements, for the components of his. Okay.
These are the components of his model.
So he hasn't got there yet.
This is way too
That's another step back.
He started in the abstract.
Should I start part
The abstracted
just
and-
Well,
like,
see, I understood that the whole exercise is to ask you questions later so that we can figure this out.
oh, did I get
So,
See,
Oh.
he already has a base. And so the questions you will ask is to get him to expand on that base, to understand it more than he already does.
because we already kind of spent the morning coming to these sorts of things, so now the point is to kind of dig deeper into that.
So it's a refining process,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
an initial.
If we just did the same
He
exercise,
begins for a point that not necessarily we were expecting. But no problem. We need to give him time
I
to.
thought that's what we were going to go ask those questions about so that we could unravel this. So
Maybe, but our question may be for verifying if his legend is adequate.
yeah.
Okay, we can use for verifying that,
Or there
not
may
for
be
finding.
elements that you have that he doesn't have,
Yeah.
and you can help him identify those.
Yeah, I want to see if this, basically what I want to understand is this an accurate way of depicting my mental map? Am I not really accurately understanding it? Or, and furthermore, is this similar to the way that other people perceive MIT, or is this just purely me?
It's almost perceived by a lot of people here. You're going in, to me, I think you're going in the right track. You're on the right track.
So that's what I want to know, basically. Because for my thesis, I want to know, is this a good hypothesis to start with, that this maybe is the way that other people use MIT campus, or am I just...
Okay.
Well, so you want to know how common your
Okay.
we were
yeah,
going to
or
sort of
how much
exercise about how
commonality.
to unravel any sort of mental model from anybody in any exercise. And the way you're setting it up is like it's impossible because that's the skill we were supposed to try to work on, right?
No, we will.
He may be missing something.
There are two
It's all right. I think the deepening of it will be basically the same.
Let's see. Let's give him a bit more of time, okay? And support our.
Yeah, but one more clarification, which there is another part to this exercise, which is small groups where you get to start from scratch. Okay? So go ahead.
So, another important part of this, to get back, is the physical context. Where I happen to be standing at a particular moment in time. You know, if I'm standing in Killian Court and I want to do something, it's going to be very different from if I'm standing over in the Student Center or if I'm standing in Kendall Square, because the resources that are in my physical proximity will be different, and I'll have to make more of an effort to get to various different resources than I might if I were just in it. So it's the context, the physical context is.
Ezra, what you're really interested in there is location, why not just say location?
Okay, maybe I should say location.
Because context could be
Context
taken
is
in
too
different
big.
ways.
Location. Then there's amount of time I have to accomplish a particular task. You know, whether it's 15 minutes or 3 hours, that's going to matter. And then also the time of day, which I think is actually a separate thing. You know, whether it's noon or midnight or 7 in the morning, it's going to make some difference as well. Just with relation to which things might be open or closed, what people might be there, things like that. I think that's about it. I mean, I can draw a brief little map of just sort of the lay of the land of my physical understanding of, just sort of a thumbnail sketch. It's probably pretty much dusk-oriented. Probably base would be like 10, make this a little bigger, 1045 maybe, which is the design area. And then there's sort of the CRN, are places that I spend a lot of time. And then there's down the floor, which is sort of hard to depict here, but there's the dust common room. There's the Steam Cafe. Across the street is the Student Center. Lobby 7 maybe is just sort of a good place that I understand. And then there's kind of, this is the part I obviously use the most, and then Stata, every once in a while I go there. And some of the other areas like the Media Lab or something like that, maybe I would go to occasionally, or Kendall. But most of my activity is pretty concentrated in that sort of general couple of buildings. area, which is probably similar to a lot of people here. You know, and then if I were able to really depict solidly in 3D, then I could show you, you know, various routes that I tend to take through the campus. You know, the connection like this, that you know, something like, and then all of this is sort of connected in my head, and then you know, there's stuff like something like that. It's not a very detailed map, but it gives you some idea of what's in my head when I'm making these decisions. Oh, the library, I guess. There too. So predominantly when I'm looking for various resources to use, I'm mostly focused in the dust area because of things like, oh, and access, actually, sorry.
Okay.
Whether or not I can physically access something, I think, has a lot to do with, you know, if I have hard access to a room, I can use it. If I don't, I can't. And then not just physical access, but social access. Do I feel comfortable? You know, I had access to space over in the media lab last semester, but I never felt comfortable there. I didn't feel like it was my space. So even though theoretically I had, you know, to use all these crazy machines, I didn't know how to use them, and I didn't feel comfortable using them on my own, and it didn't feel like my social space. So practically, I very rarely ever actually used any of those resources. So that's more or less my mental map. Is there something else I missed?
Mm-hmm. I have a question.
Okay.
Do you change your routes?
Oh yeah, right.
Depending on the weather?
Weather.
Don't get out of bed.
Yes. Yeah, I do. The weather is probably also, you know, whether I go inside or outside. You know, whether I go down the Infinite all the way across campus, or whether I decide. Usually, if the weather is even remotely nice, I'll try to go outside. But if it's really crummy out, then I'll take the interior route. And another thing actually that came out this morning that Sebastiao pointed out was that this is a dynamic mental map. That my mental map is always, through this process, is always shifting throughout the day. So depending on particular sort of arrangement of these different things, each decision is going to be slightly different based on what it is I'm trying to accomplish, where I have to be, what time of day it is, all of these different things. And so my mental map is always kind of changing slightly throughout the day. It's not static.
One thing that I'm a little unclear of is, it seems to me like you have sort of two different layers, which you sort of mix together, or layers, or I don't know. I'll try to come up with a better word, but you have sort of the stock of information of, you know, a physical map and, you know, like geographic locations, and there's different resources. But then you also have other stuff like amount of time and weather, which then, to me, is more about how you process the map and to extract a route or to extract a direction.
So maybe this is like process, context.
I mean, it's almost like you have a database and then you have a different set of queries, like you query the database in different ways.
Something like that. Does that clarify? Like this is sort of the process that I go through in general, sort of the overarching process. These are sort of the particular components of that process that enable a decision. And this is sort of the physical
His
map.
comment is about the components.
Yeah.
Two kind of components.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
some
Even
components
within
that
here?
are resources in itself, and other that are parameters of.
And they're mixed together.
Yeah, like whether an amount of time you have to do something, it very much dictates how you go about doing something, whereas resources dictates where you go. You know,
Was it be separated?
or what an objective to get to.
Okay.
When you said data and query, it's maybe about the variability of the component. You know, the library is not that variable, but weather will be more variable. So it's a data and query function
Like
that
the
will help
question
you
is
decide.
How do I get to the library depends on the weather, but maybe the fact that you want to get to the library doesn't really change on the weather.
What you need from the library is still there.
Yeah.
We are talking more of the components of the model. Should you, for illustrating us, should you explain how you go through a task in this model? If you need to go a task, how you use this model?
Sure. Well, let's take a fairly common example. I'm in the urban design department, so a lot of times I have design work to do. And I'm not a designer by training, so I'm not very familiar with a lot of the design. So in order to, let's say I have to, you know, make some sort of drawing using Illustrator or Photoshop or whatever the program is. I have those things on my own computer. I have access to, the first things I would need is, okay, what is the task I need to accomplish? The task is I need to make some sort of drawing using Photoshop. I guess the another thing, so this is sort of, so one of the things would be, how long is it going to take me to do this task? Okay, let's say it's going to take me 2 hours to complete this task. And then the other thing is, okay, do I have 2 hours? So then I'm thinking, okay, what time is it right now? What's my next class? What's my block of time that I've got? Okay, let's say I have 3 hours. So great, I've got the time. Time of day, is it lunchtime? Am I hungry? Do I need to go do something else in the interim? Let's say if it's 1 o'clock, I've already had lunch, like I can go and do this task. Okay, great. Then the next question would maybe be, what are the resources I need in order to accomplish this task? Well, I need to have the applications, I need to have the software, I need to have some sort of computer, and I need to have a space to use that computer. Either on my laptop, if I have my laptop, which I guess could be another one. Do I have my laptop? If I don't have my laptop, that's going to change my decisions slightly. It could. That's actually my thesis. It does that. What's the role of this and all of these different things. So if let's say I do have my laptop. Most likely, even though I have my laptop and I can do it in the library, I will probably still choose to go somewhere else, and I'll get to why that is. So, but the first thing is I need to have access to those physical resources, the tools to accomplish the task. And then actually a fairly major. I guess this is baseline, and then there's sort of preferences in some senses, right? I need to, in order to complete the task, I have to have Illustrator, and I have to have a computer. But there are different computers that I could use, right? And I have access to a number of different computers, so I have preferences for certain ones over other ones. So that's going to influence my decision too.
Yeah.
And then, but the big one is probably the people. If I go to 1045, I know that there are other designers who can help me through the process because I'm not perfectly competent in all these different software packages. So if I know that there are people who can help me if I get to a stumbling block, then that is significant. And then one that we seem to have kind of forgotten here is, let's say the physical space or the design of the physical space. And by that I mean like the ergonomics, the daylighting, the temperature, various things that might influence my decision as to whether I prefer to use that space over another one. So that would be another, like CRN is much nicer to work in than 1045.
What about
Patricia, she's...
Well, it's going to sound like a statement, but it's really a question. Because I am an architect. So I have like this garbage in my head. So I don't know if in cognitive analysis it's the same thing or not. So I'm just going to throw it out there. For example, when we're working on design, you can actually draw a map of an idea without actually drawing the design of the building yet. But through the map, you discover relations, for example, or channels. So, in fact, when you draw it out, you can actually tell, for example, you could be working on a specific thing, like in terms of areas, or relationships in terms of hierarchy, or relationship in terms of that will later in the design stage become proximity elements criteria, or hierarchical in terms of whatever, expressions or. So what I was trying to see in the map was that I saw different elements. I saw, for example, that the physical was like a rough version of a map, but it doesn't really show relations in terms of instance of use or how important it is to you, or in terms of the list in the middle that's associated with context. I can see, for example, that there are different qualities in the elements. You started enriching it actually at the end with elements or criteria or factors that would affect a certain type of decision, but of your movements. But some of them were very non-tangible, like if you have your laptop or not, if there's software or not. So, but they're mixed with other things that are more related to connections and relations between you and either spaces or people that are there. So I don't know. So I was thinking, how could one actually sort of build it in terms of what would you want to build it on? Like on relationships, on hierarchies, on connectivity, on intensivity of use, intensiveness of use. Because I think if it has everything on top, I can't see how you could actually use it to understand something in particular. But I might be wrong. I mean, I don't know how cognitive.
Okay, no problem. He described not the process for achieving the mental model, but he described the model in itself. So I think that's natural that now the conversation should be about the model. After that, we will make an exercise of how to construct it. But asking him to explain his model is natural that we will explain the final result of his thinking. No? And you are talking about these different components that we should use for describing a model. No? Different kinds of frameworks for describing a model. No?
I don't know, I was just trying to understand what's going on there. And, so I was thinking, so I used examples as in architecture, for example, as a way of trying to figure out what I could see, and my conclusion of that I'm seeing superimposed things that would not allow me to read either relationships or hierarchies or something that will allow me to get some sort of evaluation out of it.
Yeah, I think how he's expressed some of that, but he hasn't shown it graphically. That's what you're saying.
I think that these are basically these are the underlying characteristics of, I could probably draw out a whole map of those various hierarchies, but my point is that this is what underlies those hierarchies. And it's important to note that those are dynamic, that those hierarchies are not static hierarchies, that every time I want to do a particular task, I'm going to go to 1045, because that's the hierarchy in my mind, is 1045 is the best place to do XYZ tasks. But that based on all of these different things, those hierarchies are constantly shifting in an ebb and flow. And so the important thing to me is that 1045 is not far away from other resources that I also might want to choose to use, because where I am is going to influence whether I can access it. Does that help?
What?
I guess
it's very clear. It's just that
yes, I think so.
Yeah. Okay. But
I mean, it sounds like your question is sort of, how does this relate to a design process? How would you actually use this in designing a building? Or?
No.
To a graphical representation.
How would you make a
that's
mental,
my question.
Yeah, no. How would you make your mental map work to describe a particular situation? Be it relations, be it hierarchy, be it times, be it, because I have the feeling that, for example, architecture, you can't just use the same amount to describe everything. For example, you wouldn't be able to find, it would just get so, you can't really, so that's what I was seeing, like you have like the elements, but maybe I'm wondering if exactly what you're saying, according to the different situations you want to map out, maybe the map is not done yet, maybe the material is there to build several ones. Oh, no question on that.
Okay. She and after.
I think, I'm not sure, I don't know if I understand what she's saying is about the dynamic of the process. I mean, what's the dynamic of all those elements and how do they interrelate together? Is that what you're saying? I mean, what's the character of the dynamic I mean, you have all these different elements.
Okay.
How do they
Yeah,
relate with
yeah.
each other?
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
Is it? Oh, okay, okay. Sorry, I think I wasn't quite getting
How it
it.
relates to the challenge? Is that what you said?
Well, I think that's what I was trying to get at with the example that you asked me to do. But I think that's partly kind of the next stage of my own personal research is how do these all relate? I don't know the answer to that question. And which of these things is the most important and how is it, you know, what, here I've just kind of organized them in any old which way, but is there some sort of, maybe these are in a hierarchical list. The first thing I ask is, can I do the thing? The second thing I ask is maybe how much time, maybe the third is where do I have to be standing, and fourth is, you know, what do I know? There's another thing actually. What do I know about the physical context? You know, if I'm across campus, I might not know what there, maybe there's some room right next door that I could use, but I don't know that it's there. So, knowledge or maybe strength of the, you know, how detailed this map is for where I'm at.
Wouldn't the importance, does he have that on there, some needs you have to do that day regardless, you have to take care of? There's some things you just have to take care of regardless, and that's...
Yeah, I guess, that's true. The importance of the task, you know, because I have to choose the task, because there might be multiple tasks.
Maybe it's in your class, you have to be
right,
there, you
right.
have to.
Okay.
And I think another thing is whether or not it's a task that I need to focus on singularly, or whether it's something I can multitask, and the amount of concentration I might need probably go into that.
Chris?
I guess it's a little unclear to me what this is actually for. I mean, like, I understand. No, I don't mean that just to cut it. I just, like, it would help to understand, you know, what you have this wealth of information and there's a lot of relationships, but what does that help you do? How does that help you organize your behavior? And, you know, and then you're trying to understand if other people organize their kind of mental models and their behavior in the same way you do, or is it different, or, you know, what are the different types of how people organize their way? Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, outside of this class, my interest is in if there's some way to take this kind of knowledge and use it for the design of physical spaces. So there's some way that this sheds some light on, like, sort of the way that something that came to light this morning is anybody who's familiar with the work of Kevin Lynch, where he did mental mapping of people's images of various cities. So he'd ask them to do a similar thing here, but physically oriented. Just how do you get around the city? What's your mental map of the physical things in the city? And from that, he was able to pull out these various components of how people find their way through cities. Yeah. But what he didn't really point out, which really was laid bare this morning, was all of these other things that are going on. You know, why is it that people would even need to go from A to B, and how that would influence their decision to move through those different spaces. So this is sort of like a cognitive map of a number of other things that are not necessarily physical, but related to the physical.
Renee is asking to.
I have one question
okay.
about it. I think if that's not the question that Chris asked, I have a feeling. Let me know if I'm wrong. But putting aside your research and your interest in this, how does this mental model of MIT, that's dynamic, help you decide how to act in your day at MIT, like get around, find the best route, find the best space to work in for the task at hand?
I mean,
how does this mental model help you organize your behavior?
Now that I'm aware of it, or
day.
How did it do it before, even before I was aware of it? Like, because there's one question is
you can before. Does it matter?
Yes.
In some cases, yes, but not in the fundamentals. In some cases, it will change his behavior for being aware about this. Okay. But in spite of that, he uses it in some way.
Okay, so now that you're aware of it, how does it help you organize your behavior like, if you put yourself in your mind, like yesterday, as you were walking through campus, making decisions on how to get to a certain place or what place you were in, what role did this model play?
Well,
How did it help you?
I guess usually the way that I use this is the other way around. I try to figure out. I'm constantly checking my model. I'm more interested in the model than I am in the how it's changing my behavior. To know the model, but that's just me personally.
We are getting out of time for the exercise. Okay. Renee wants to make a question, Jody, but brief question and brief answer for concluding.
I think one of the things that I think I heard you say is about decision efficiency. You know, the model's there, you know where things are, and you choose those, and what you don't know may have been more efficient, but you don't know. And so just when you said, you know, there might be a room next door that I could use, but you don't bother looking.
Right.
Could have made you more efficient.
Right.
So that's just what I heard you say.
Okay.
Just a comment that occurred as you were going through this based on my lack of knowledge of MIT. But thinking in terms of you as a guide, so to speak, and how as we acquire more information, knowledge, we're constantly adding lines to our maps. And in terms of like an orientation, say, of how a new student comes in to MIT and what pieces of that map, you know, that person would have and how they would add to it, and how you got to where you are, and how you might be able to help somebody else with your map, a new student coming in, what pieces of it you might be able to offer, you know, to help someone else have a more direct line on their map than what it took you to get where you are.
I'm supposed to. It occurred to I thought of something to answer Claudia's question. I think it gives me a more complex and dynamic ability to make decisions. So my decisions are probably better. I probably have a more streamlined decision-making process capability than I had before because I'm aware of all these different factors. I'm probably more likely to make a good decision about where to do something, how to do it, what to use, who I want to be there in the room with me to do the thing that I need to do. So overall, it makes me, the decision-making process is more streamlined, and hopefully I'm more efficient and more productive when I'm there. And I'm sort of writing a piece for a magazine right now that's sort of related to that issue. So hopefully I'll know more once I've actually written.
I want to find out, in that process, go through that and see if there's anything he's missed or refine that. Or is this is the end of the activity for him?
For this moment of the class, I was thinking that what he has made is enough for us. After that, we need to make our exercise. Okay? But, okay, thank you very much. I'd like to make some comments about his exercise. Really, thanks very much. Okay? And he describes his model. In the effort of description, he tries to characterize the diverse components. The useful of the exercise for us is that now we have in our mind a lot of concepts for thinking about our own mental model. Okay? The mental model, for the kind of use that we will make in reflective practice, doesn't need to be much sophisticated. But we should be clear about the use we make of it and how to improve it too. So, to understand how to improve, the best way is to make an exercise. Okay? We made in the morning, in 30 minutes, we made an exercise, and he was able to construct this model in just 30 minutes. And now?
I had actually done some previous work with this.
Yes. But, yes. But it's possible to, not with the level of sophistication we have here, 15 variables. Okay? But with less variables, we can make in a brief time. The idea is that after this experience, we will go to the break, and after the break, we will make the exercise in 2 groups. In each group, one person will be volunteer for describing, for construct one model, and the other people will make questions for help them to go forward in the construction of his model. Okay?
Any guidance as to how to choose the model that they're going to construct?
My suggestion is to make something that is spatial. It's space. Okay? Not things so abstract as the psychologist. Okay? Something that to be able to think about in space helps a lot to describe the functions. Okay, it's a support for thinking about the functions, the space. The other kind of model is it's logical relations. Okay? It's a construct more abstract. And you will, in each group, one person will offer for making, or you may select among you. Each one may show his model, the idea of model he has in his mind, and people may select one, or the people may offer to himself. You can see in the group which way you prefer. Okay?
Okay. So during this break, if you can just think about what type of model you would like to try to build, and then you can present it in your small groups briefly and pick one that you're going to really develop over a 30-minute period.
Yeah.
I'd also love to get feedback during the break if people are interested in this particular thought process and whether it seems like I'm heading down the right path, if this seems like the way that most people might be making their decisions, or if I'm just kind of pulling that out of my own process. That'd be helpful if people want to talk about that. And also, if people feel comfortable, I'd love to get their mental maps of MIT. If people want to feel comfortable giving them to me after class.
Yeah.
Put your name and your email on your map.
Yeah, or actually even and what would also be great is if you could put like basic demographic, like age, gender, what your class, what you're studying here, maybe where you're from, something like that. Where your email? Oh, what's my email? My email is ejg@mit.
Okay, let's go to the break. We will begin 11 less 5. Or 5 minutes for 11. ¿Cómo se dice?
5 minutes to 11.
Okay. The best way is a method, a chaotic, no? 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay? What's the name of something that's
Binary?
is aleatory?
By random?
Random. Okay? Random. So, please, each one of you say one number. 1, 2, 1, 2. We will begin by Lee.
1.
1.
2. 1. 2.
1.
2.
2. Ezra's 2.
Ezra.
2. Yeah.
Okay. 2.
1, 2, 1.
Okay? Ezra, you are? 2. One may meet this place nearly, and 2 may meet in this place near René. Okay? Your task is 1. Each one will describe briefly his model. After that, you will select one, and we'll try to help the person to construct, to improve his initial version. Okay? The method should be go from the task to the components. Okay? Because the task helps to identify the functions. Okay? And the functions helps to identify the components. Huh? And try to design something that is not so complex. The mental model should have 2 main characteristics. Should be highly effective and robust. I may use it for many different things, and it should be simple, not much complex. Okay, I need to try to combine these 2 characteristics. Okay.
But we're gonna give the person like several minutes to build and then tell, or
No,
we're gonna build it from.
The first activity is just to explain to each other the model.
The one we have already.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh,
okay. Okay. The first thing.
The MIT model. We're not gonna make a new one. We're just MIT model.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I thought it was.
No. In this case, it's MIT model. I don't know if everyone has.
We didn't work in any other model.
Okay. Okay. And after that, you may select one, or you may decide collectively to construct one.
Oh, as
okay?
a group.
As a group. Okay? It's very heavy. Okay.
No. In that scenario planning, what we tend to do, explicitly separating, if you're trying to build a community, a collective, explicitly separating
Please. Groups. I have one. Someone will be the time controller. Okay? We will remember people. We have 25 minutes, we have 20 minutes, we have 15 minutes, we have 10 minutes. Okay? To remember the time. Okay? Constantly. You will do it.
How many inputs do we have?
We have 30 minutes. 30. Okay, we will finish
30 minutes.
11:30. Okay?
Anyway, more later.
Yeah, we'll talk after that.
Okay, disclaimer. I'm not getting this.
Okay.
Can anybody give me a 2 minutes?
Yeah, 2 minutes.
I'm not getting this crystal model thing.
Can may I make a question before we answer your question? Hi, Renee.
How are you? Manuela.
Manuela, good to meet you. Okay, that's all. I just didn't know you. I do everybody else I think I'm not facilitating. I'm taking time. For 2 minutes are almost over.
I mean, not just yours. I mean, just in general. Like, I don't think I get, not the task. I don't get, large mental model thing. It's not cooking for some reason.
Maybe I
The
can
plug's
have
not in.
an example. In my work, I work with communities in America. What we've done in terms of mental model is working with the community members to express how they see their community. And we ask them to draw what their community looks like.
enable you to
And
reorganize your
it's very
work
revealing in
to
terms
finish
of what
your
people prioritize
what you can
and
finish
and actually some things that show differences in perspective. For example, this happens regularly when women who have to get water draw the village here and the river way over there and the path very complex. The men will draw city, river, and it's like this right there, what's strong. And so just to understand that there are different models, and when people are making decisions or trying to talk to each other, they have these very different mental models about their reality. So that, I don't know.
They're kind of mental image of how they see things and prioritize.
Exactly. And the example that you're trying to give us about a building, an architect can draw a line and see a building. I don't. I see a line. So it's just, and how you are able to.
Yeah, sometimes you start something and you don't have a vision, a model, and especially when you work with projects, community projects. A lot of projects have documents that are different models, so then you get this everybody at the table has a different mind, and maybe they'll want to get the same goal, but if everybody has a different model to get there, then does that make sense?
Please may I give an instruction. The immediate task is each one to show your model you have. Don't talk about the issue. No. Everyone will work with his own understanding. Begin the task.
Some people didn't understand what mental maps were. They were still a little unclear as to
This person will understand in the process of the exercise. We have no time for that.
25 minutes.
Okay? Begin to...
So now people are explaining their own maps?
Quickly.
Yeah, we have to decide which map we're going to try to construct. Who wants to be the person?
So we can share them, right? Just quickly.
Yeah, what ideas you have?
So anyway,
To work on. These are the
So we saw yours.
But I didn't do MIT one. Does it have to be MIT?
No, just tell me what idea. Tell us what idea you have in terms of a potential model you can construct.
I don't want to be the first one.
Okay, so my model pretty much is like a body and like this area of the common room and the computer lab and Roach library, pretty much the dust area is kind of like the heart of like this body, and everything else is kind of like vague, but this is where it all happens for me right here in this little.
So you're interested in constructing your own model of MIT? Tell me.
No, she's describing the model that she was asked that she worked on.
Right.
Network as well. So within Grove Hall, there may be 2 or 3 locations that we actually.
Well, you could have a different model.
Permeable barriers
Oh, that's what I was thinking.
No, I'll stick with this because I didn't really understand.
No, I mean, mine is like 2 abstract. Like what I think about MIT, not like my map, but I don't know, like there are people from all over, planning, research, education, creativity.
I tried to describe my relationship to the world, and because this is my world actually, campus. I don't ever leave campus almost. So first I discovered a boundary of my world, which was the wireless internet.
The range of MIT.
The range of MIT. That's my connection to the world. And no, it's important because my connection to the world is email and Skype. My emotional world is outside the wireless. There's a door to the world which is Kendall.
Choose right now.
And it's like a little closer world, Boston.
A model that you
this is the only way I move. I don't have a car, so
You don't even get the central.
So the one that
I know. I realize that. This is my connection to Boston, but that's
getting around
and this looks a little bit spatial, but it's actually because it's funny, but it's my the way I actually relate to the different tasks that I do. Home was of
And we
course
can
the
decide.
task of
I
living.
think what we did, we each already did one.
Exercise and food.
Part of the previous exercise was to draw a model. Everybody was asked to draw a model of MIT.
My relationship to my
That's
peers
what- that's
and my
what we're saying.
And what I'm trying to
my
get you to
relationship
do
to knowledge,
is,
which
you
is
can
where
do
I
that if
really
you want, but you don't need
because
to.
that's also my
But we're starting by sharing what we've already done, and then we can go to the next level of
and
maybe
of course
deciding
the
something else.
library and my office, which is all the
See what I mean?
was the one that you did? Like,
I didn't do MIT because I don't live here, and I was asked to do care. I was doing care, and what I did was a scope of action
that's why it's
kind of
fun.
map,
It's sort of
where
spatial, but
different
it's really
pieces
not. It was
of
more
care
like the tasks that
have
I
a
do,
scope of
like
action
live,
within, and each one
exercise,
each circle
and have my
represents
coffee, and then just go
some
to my
money,
research
some knowledge, some
and
ideas,
do
some
what I
power,
have to do.
yes, no
And
power,
then sometimes I
and
go out
time.
of that world.
So that's what I had put in these circles.
And,
Oh, and networks.
furthest
So each one of these
relationships that I
has
use very, very
these different
seldom,
little
but are all
components.
the
And
support
when I'm
networks
trying,
for
and some of them are
international
coherent, some of them are not, and some of them are coherent with what I perceive to be CARE's function, and some of them may be totally outside of CARE's function or partially within or CARE's function. CARE scope of action, let's say.
It's interesting that there's such a
for what I
geographic
think it
correlation
should
that
be.
you can compartmentalize.
And so when I try to
these
accomplish
sort of
something,
abstract parts of your life
I
with the
scan,
physical stuff.
Well,
I scope,
actually, the
I
conclusion
see
I just
what I,
recently
what I
understood
think is there,
that means
who
that
has
my
what,
spatial,
which pieces
the
of this,
correlation
with both
between
political
what I
power,
do
yes,
and
no,
how
time,
important
money,
it is
knowledge,
at this
ideas,
point in my life is
from my
perfect, because
perspective.
it's spatially-
And then I try to
it
get
coincides
as many
spatially.
of these resources
That doesn't always
to
happen,
help
but
me
here,
resolve
that's why I
or
was explaining
leverage
so much, like, it's not a
my
it's not spatial,
intent.
but it just happens to be spatial, which
My
is really
act-
interesting,
the
because it means
action
that
I'm trying
spatially
to
my life is
accomplish.
very
So I may have to go,
We have
and often,
six-
and by
sorry,
the reason I
yeah.
put networks in because we tend to have networks both internal and external.
Completely opposite.
And often I have, for example, some standard external networks, resources that I use. And others might have those as well. So in order to get those, I have to go here and figure out if they have any that might.
Because I think mine is very similar to
So that's what I was, that's how I
some of
do
that and
mine.
some of that. Okay. Okay, so here is my,
I'm trying to make sense
what I
of
call
drawing,
my mental
like,
map.
this is not good
My main
drawing.
issue right now is researching and writing thesis.
They're all good.
Very specific places
So-
within
Look at my
campus, but also outside.
But I
I cannot
start
conceive
with
only my relationship with
start
MIT.
with a
I'm thinking
situation
about
I am-
outside and moving.
I
I'm
am
moving inside
in
MIT.
for
me,
the counter that I
it
came
doesn't make
myself.
sense for me.
And I
to
basically see at this is
so
a classroom.
there's my
where I have been,
research,
like, in my
what I
first
do, there's
sem.
an office where I do
Has been basically
but
my
that
life.
space is also a space for research,
And
for
my
interaction,
experience
for learning,
is
and for
I see
friendship,
disconnect
also for relating with people
between
inside the office.
while MIT seems
outside
to
also.
have the technical and the
The other
social
thing is there's another place for
they seem to
I'm
have
sorry,
a
within
disconnect
that
in the way
research process there's also
they are taught.
there is
People
some
are very, very
relationship with the
technical,
outside,
people are
with the
social,
community,
and you don't
with the
see
outside,
how,
with the
you know,
community, my
or
work.
how practice and theory
there's
are actually coming in. Like in a
constant
classroom, you
relationship
just
with
have
that
all these
outside world,
theories,
that
and then like where's the
outside,
practice,
and
you
I
don't see, but you're
directly
directly
related
related
to
to
me, my
practice, you know,
research within.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm making sense.
So here
and so,
I
because I
place
started
also
that
which is
situation,
with this class, which
my
has been
life has basically
influencing
been
a lot the way I see my research here.
what the classroom has
And it's a learning and
has to push me or pressure me to do, which is, you know, been my
the
life
way
has been like
the time I spend here
I've
when
been
I go back there, the way that influences
and
my
using the
research.
CRM as a resource for that matter.
The other thing is
but along the way,
resources,
I realized that I
libraries,
can't go on with this
exercise,
kind
and all
of
that.
life.
So all
You
this,
know,
all I
it's
think
not
is
gonna-
connected with what I'm
gonna
doing,
maximize
with furthering learning
what I have
and living
actually
experience
gained
related with my research
over
and
years
my
of experience, because
relationship
that's what
with the
I
outside
thought I would be learning here. You know, that I already had some questions.
Also, there's
in my previous
another
experiences
other
that I
groups
felt like
outside
I
MIT
came here that some
also
the process
all
would enlighten
influencing
me,
this
you know, grapple with them and enlighten me how to go about, move forward. That's why I landed into this class,
24-hour access
because I thought I saw the whole idea for reflective practice,
it gives
and
you
I
the
felt
ability
like
to
this
continually,
probably can help
it's
me.
not, it's an ongoing
You know,
process.
understand
every time. You can
things
come back
I've
and
been
go
through,
out.
experiences in the development work that I've been doing. And I also saw a women's studies thing here. I haven't got in touch with that, but I think that's a resource I would like to talk. But the other resource is also the technical resource, and that puts me a question mark. because I don't know where to actually get, you know, I mean, like you have classes like, you know, you have stats, you have all this microeconomics, but I'm looking for more like, you know, understanding complexities of environmental issues, or even like, you know, hydrology and all these things, but I don't like it in a very, very the only in my mental map, like what I know at this point is it's too technical, you know. I went into this 101 climate change thing and all that, and but it was too like, it was modeling they were discussing, and I couldn't get into all this modeling that he did. I mean, I need a technical thing, but I need the resources, people, and probably, you know, like understanding software.
Juanita, we need to, unfortunately, at this point we can't describe the models. We need to determine which model we're going to start to train.
Okay,
so
like showing what my world is about.
So that this gives us an idea of
15 minutes left.
This is great. We only have 15 minutes left. So maybe the question is, who wants to construct a model? Who wants to volunteer? Who would be interested?
The movement.
Can I start with the physical movement, the way that I'll be better.
Do you want, okay.
tasks involved.
My model, I was trying to model MIT, but I felt in some ways unusual. So I couldn't, what am I doing here? What I do outside connected to MIT? I work in a village in a village. And one of the main reasons that I came here was how could I build, so I have developed for those villages, which based on the model that I already tried that was working well, how could I strengthen that so I could see a vision where everybody that was working with could continue to do. So, but my role really became just pretty much in CRCP, which even if the resources there, I don't even have the navigation to do it. So it's kind of like, even though it's a huge place that has so much, it's not, it doesn't have much, doesn't have a bridge, doesn't have a map to connect you to what the resources is there, and does not connect the resources to what you have. Even though I have a lot to offer, the MIT problem is not going to take benefits from what I have as much as I'm not going to take as much benefits from what MIT has.
But neither of the maps really describe any specific relationships that one. We all study here, but
what you were talking about and what I was talking with Jody earlier, because she was interested in people's orientation in spaces, so she was trying to figure out how do you help people get oriented in these places that it speeds up their learning process about what exists there. I thought that was a really interesting thing, and that's kind of similar to what you're talking about. These are the challenges facing somebody. To me, that's kind of interesting.
I was just mentioning
how you would construct that mental map in a better way through some sort of orientation process.
What I thought was interesting about Renee's thing was you include also power.
You're talking about learning, it's like this kind of cycle or
in order to move
those are tasks.
within care,
Maybe it's maybe a more generalized form of task
do
as
your
opposed
work.
to, I pick up
You not only have like the people who you need to have relationships with, but also what power they have and who they can connect you to. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that was interesting.
For you, I liked when you said, the reason, it was a purposeful mental map, and I know each mental map has a purpose. We're very explicit about that, and so in an orientation or whatever, we have to understand the purpose before we are able to help you develop your map that will serve your purpose, which will be different than yours or mine.
Also, lots of
I'm just going to say we have less than 15 minutes.
There's going back and forth.
The ones that I heard which were interesting was kind of a organic one, a network map, an intellectual resource map,
planning,
a function technical map, and again another kind of network. You used the word bridge, network map, which was interesting.
There's a lot of
and your power relations one.
My power relations. I skipped mine. I didn't know what I said. So it's not self-conscious.
Information dissemination and extraction.
So I guess the question is We have to choose one. One person has to volunteer.
Well, you guys can choose. I mean, I won't mind volunteer mine, but I don't want to take away from the stuff. That's fine.
And so then the goal is to like find out more about how they put their map together.
I mean, the resources, libraries.
Yep.
Well, I think I've done this so many times. I think it's very clear. I mean, you can. Don't judge me for my
Gathering.
I can't help it.
Those little balls
We do.
over there is the village. It's 27,000 acres of land.
I don't know, I was just wondering.
One part of this land is a desert.
We've been
And there's
working on
23
mental maps.
23 villages in the desert. The one I work
Where are we?
in Northeast
And what happened is
Yeah,
that
we were in.
look at what
And
different places, different landmarks
at the northeast.
that were important to people.
So this part is part of the
How
desert.
each person uses the same
So in
place.
this part,
So
is a part of the country that's been in a very hard situation for many, 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 many years.
For example, to
Slavery, all kinds of
and
things
places
happened
that
in this
were
part of the country.
seemingly important,
So,
in
but the
end
Indians
you
lived
realize,
there
like,
for a
they
long
weren't
time.
to anybody.
So
because
this
it wasn't any
this
of the
land was
facts.
then
What
got
if,
back
for
to the
example,
tribe.
our
The land was invaded by
group
the
map, for
farmers.
example, by
Sometimes just sold that pieces, but invaded by the farmers. But about 17 years ago, they started to fight back for the land, and they got the land. But 2 years ago, they got the land back.
Who's the they?
They deemed for the land.
In the rest,
They?
would be like
Which they?
how
Shukuris.
different parts.
The former slaves or the Indians or both?
I don't know.
The what?
That's a way also to
Who's getting their land back? The slaves or the Indians? The Indians.
So this tribe is protected by Funai and Sin, but even though they're protected, also have other situations where they don't really have anything. And only the federal government can help them. The federal government never goes there. So what happened is this woman did make so because they don't have water, so what I was trying to find out is how could I build sustainability for these people. So they make this beautiful handmade lace. So the idea, which I always felt by living here in the United States, giving money to people was not always the best way. But how can you find us something that they could work, and I would sell here, and then they would have the money back. So the only
So your map is almost like a cycle.
For example, in the end, maybe we would all
From
end
here
up
to this
saying
part
that.
and then back to.
Exactly. So my map was, I went there and identified the need and built a structure.
So you mean
So
the-
they did, what did they want? They want food,
Yes, there's
water,
like
education, health.
Space.
So we built a little market where they could buy food at cost. Everybody put the money together, we buy food, and they'll buy food by cost. We get a water pump, so they could get water from the reservoir into the village. We also got school supply for all the children and one computer with internet, so they could have education. And we got glasses for all the women and transportation, so they could go
That's all here. I don't know about my
Provisions.
food.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then we training.
or tea.
They were training two girls that was then in high school, finishing high school, now to go to college. And they work, make sure all this process works. So that was working well. And we went from 60 kids to 160 kids. And it's worked fantastic. But how? Now, other people from other villages want to work in the same process. But I can afford buy the money because the product, then they have all kinds of other needs. They don't know how to sew, they don't have a facility for them to do the work. And so they have all those other barriers that they need in order for them, even though we have the market over here, they have all those other barriers of construction. But we have 100% education, the kids are doing a computer class, things are working. We have 150 farmers, we get
Like an identity map or a
so things is
workflow map
amazing.
more than a...
Just in the interest of keeping us on track and on time, I assume we're
10 minutes.
limited. How does this, without getting too much more detail on the problem that you're working with, how does that relate back to MIT and your image of the physical space?
Your office, your parking lot maybe, and your
relationship.
The idea was I got 4 years because now I don't know how do I build this model to, first of all, the 23 villages want to take advantage of the same process.
So was this process formalized
was
task and the mental parts is much bigger parts.
yeah, is the need was
I don't know,
coming,
it's almost a
which
launching
is
pad to
attached
do everything else you want to
and
do.
then we have 400 people, but now the other 23, in order for us
You're
to
obviously
build
enough, right?
a whole
8
staff,
minutes ago.
we need more people to work.
Okay, so we have
And
boundary,
in order for
tasks,
us to do more people to work,
resources we
we
haven't
need
done in
infrastructure.
physical. So I would say
So
we
I
should
came
stick
to
to
MIT
those.
to find the resources
Yeah.
that I
I don't
need
think we have time
in
to
order
do
to
that.
make this work.
Yeah, we don't
Once
have
that we
resources.
get the seeds, the men start to use fertilizer and that can contaminate the soil. Once that we give the school supply and we get kids to school, now they all want to go to college. I'm thankful too, but I can't pay
Where's
for
the parking lot? Is it
it. So
behind us?
even though things is working, it's a matter they don't feel like somebody is learning. We have professionals in here, they wouldn't have to before. But now what? How do you build this to the next level? One thing that I did was I did a survey, which is finishing now, on all the 23 villages. We have about 3,000 copies of the survey to identify the needs. But now, I can afford to pay for those to be analyzed, to be in the database. So all those resources as they go, I have no ways of getting help inside of MIT, of knowing where to go for help. Even though I'm here for learning, I have a nice office and I have a computer that I can use, but my abilities of identifying these needs is still very limited.
Steam. Oh, you forgot.
In your model,
Sustenance.
how do you factor
The ones that first, right?
What about the one first main?
governments
Oh,
of
Pete.
that
Pete's and
village or
Yeah.
in that whatever in the interaction? Because like I'm thinking, have you mapped out available resources in the village? It's gonna help you proceed with the work rather than trying to find. I mean, like it does help to find some help out here at MIT and
It'd be
resources.
interesting to do 2 layers. Like, I don't know.
I do the layers, exactly.
But the helping over here does not necessarily means the help is from here. It's you identifying a model, if the help is there or whatever it is, what can you, take into consideration. This is indigenous, and the indigenous, the reservation is very, it's not the kind of thing that you can openly do a lot of things. We have certain limitations. So how to help them? Preserving the culture and preserving their privacy. The chief is very young, he doesn't have much education, so I don't want to just do anything out of my mind that would jeopardize a long-term endeavor.
So I think basically I wonder about what model we're constructing.
Put these tasks on you.
Like, are we
Something like that, exactly.
trying to construct
So
a
you
model
take the
that
bus here, and you
5 minutes.
work in Brazil?
Exactly.
We need to focus on some.
With a model that, no, I think a model that could work here. I'm still trying to build this model that I have and connect this model to what I'm doing here.
So you have a model in your mind, but in practice it's not working out like how you imagine it based on the model.
I think there's confusion about model.
Yeah,
Not about your
there's-
model that you use for your work. Like,
It's
okay, we have 5
like
minutes.
your strategy.
Can we draw these
for
connections
intervening
kind of
in this
community on this too?
community.
Is that what sort of
It's about
at a boundary? And you want to, you had a hard boundary, you had a very
more
soft boundary. Like,
There's actually another scale, this is like,
I don't know, it's a resource you
and
use
their
for
world is
guiding a
way
specific
out there.
action.
I understand. That is what I'm having difficult doing.
So let's pick a specific action. A model that you use in
your boundary
order
was sort of 24 hours, is like come or go at any time. And maybe your guys' boundary was just a little bit harder than that, hopefully.
implement the training program for the people
So you don't even
you work with, or if it's MIT,
So
how is their model for
it's up to you guys, I was just thinking.
establishing connections to resources? So
Yeah,
what
yeah,
model
yeah.
figure out how to
When you
connect
have
I have
to
one,
resources
but I
you
have.
need for
Or you have markers.
when you're trying to establish connections to resources, what do you think? Like the first time that you do it, in order to find resources at MIT.
Well, instead of saying that the outside world is like math,
one thing
One thing
and
that
her
I
outside
researched
world,
the
I just
computer.
do it that way. But
what do you do?
where do you
I researched in the
math
computer.
was north south?
And
towards the
and when I applied, I don't have to pull model together in order to get the need. I don't have a model.
Okay, what else do you do? You research.
I talk to people.
Which people do you talk to?
Where's your outside world more?
3 minutes.
Which people? Which people?
Well, administrators, fellows, students.
Only Kendall.
Students?
Administrators.
Okay, name.
And we have to
How many? 5 people.
all
Layers,
this.
like when you look at
Peter?
architects or plans, they always have layers, so it's like they don't.
Sebastian.
Sometimes you get into.
Or we have our office.
You might like how do people use like you have a transit layer, you have a water layer, you have an economic
What else do
layer,
you do?
and so you have
So
like
you research on the
look at
computer, you
different
talk to
lenses,
them.
so usually
What
there's
else?
layers in the thing, but
I
also
give them my
there's stuff.
information.
How would
Not
we,
what
where
was
we
in
have
there.
coffee and where we work?
It's hard to
I
do
give
because
them
you need
the
transparent paper
information
or
I
you
have.
kind of like.
I
you need,
tried,
like,
yeah,
this
that's why I was, that's where the dog.
About what?
Make them aware of
Make them
aware.
We raise awareness by giving them information about your work.
Yeah, you could do it that.
Okay.
Yeah, your arrows is like when you go towards the outside world.
Right, gain access.
Your outside world was
I have in
towards.
mind, well, I'm doing
Well, it just gets confusing.
one
It just
class.
gets confusing.
Mine is
So
just
one of the
Canada.
classes,
So like
we're
imagine
gonna
here's
do
your
a
map
work
right
with
here.
one
This is
of
my
the students
But then,
kind
so
of
this is
take
just the
that.
physical buildings. But then over
You're
here,
gonna
you
say
have kind of
involve
like these sort of
one
points
in
that show up
a
in
class,
this is where you
a
do
group of
different things.
students.
So
Where do
then-
you spend most of the
So
time?
then you can
From
have,
that,
you can
it's
see
gonna
here's the
be one
physical, and then
study.
here's the points on
Is
top of
that-
it.
Okay, so linkages to classes.
Yes.
So two of our worlds.
You try to
are
establish
more
linkages to
here.
classes.
Where do you spend most of your time?
Or do you go 50-50?
So this blue would be like really strong.
Yeah,
I think
I mean the
Sloan's school could have been one, but I'm not sure exactly how to do
for some
that.
sorts of tests, like you should just use internet.
So when you don't
in the
know-
cloud, whereas if you have, I know
Yeah,
Claudia did this in this particular
Is that
location.
that's what I don't know. Sometimes I send letters, you know, but it's not much
Right, yeah.
response to it.
And then
I-
you think about
You know, it's not much to follow
one
through.
layer.
There's not that many people follow through, you know?
This way.
Because it has that whole process. They don't know how that process works.
The elements you just use every day. But what is,
Yeah.
what is the, I mean, what is the flow? What is the, you know? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we're happy with that. We want to work on that.
When you research
That's
on the
what
computer,
we're
what
trying
do
to
you
say
research?
is like how, also how
1 minute.
important our relationship
What I research, all kinds of other projects like mine.
Like
These
within
are-
MIT, like are you looking for information
Whereas
on
ours is
MIT or
very
outside
much
MIT?
Yeah, we
Contained.
with classes that can help you learning what to do.
Yeah, what else?
With
They're all
other
there
projects
because
that
we have
he's
our
developed that
office
looks
and
like
the
mine
study
that
and
could,
coffee
you know,
and
maybe
everything.
partners.
Exactly.
What else?
Maybe we should do.
You know, it's people who have been in Brazil, who knows the reality of what with agents. They have understanding about pretty much
If
those
you guys have
kind
similar
of
patterns and Lee has a different pattern, then I think you can do it. So, I mean, your boundary is pretty hard, right?
So far, what we've been doing through identifying what your actions are,
something like this conceptually and then
we're kind of getting at
these
some of the
boundaries
components in this model that you use
these boundaries much more
to
permeable.
identify resources or connect to resources.
And then we can say
Starting
Just
to
circle these with the color that lets you know where they go.
the resources or
Or tasks or.
one way to connect to resources is through classes. One way to connect to resources is
Because
through.
there's a specific space here where most of the.
It's
The one with the little.
But there could be like very
an
general
implicit
classes,
thing
which
is
is I
that
think what
it's
we
through
actually
people,
got into
right?
is like
And so
what
to
our
get to
life
the
is
people,
about.
you
It's
can
about
get
work.
through the classes,
It's
with
about
their common
and where we work and it's about
commonalities and subjects.
and funny thing is that
Another
both
is
of us
projects.
here we work
If
at
you
Linear,
find the
but
project,
she
then
has like 50%
you
of her
can
life
get to the
outside,
person, right?
which is
And I live there too.
and you live there too. That's what I mean. So more than 50% of your entire life includes
Yeah,
how
that's
you're
true.
Somewhere you're looking
for the language of the commonality.
so this will be the internet.
Common interest.
what
Come
yeah.
to me.
So you're
This is our daily
and
life.
and you're some okay. Why do you look for people?
Because I find that through people that you have the communication.
But what do you expect to get?
So you're
Information about if they're doing the same thing or if this model has been done in any other place.
Okay.
Because
Knowledge. What else?
not
support
what do you
somebody
get
in this
from
situation. What do I get?
What do you get from people when you go to them?
Exactly. Especially like understanding if this model is right to continue or if there's any other way, if there's any better way to do this. It's pretty much knowledge of how to do this without without damage the space.
So what else does not
bring it in so that you can do
I think support.
What kind of support?
Because for me, or well, support towards the understanding of exactly what I'm doing. Support and understanding of what I'm doing. It's just pretty much to exchange ideas. Like, is this the right way to do it? Is this the right way? What kind of consequence that can cause to us right now? Or by not knowing.
Time's up.
John, why did you work with John?
Claudia.
Okay, so we're done. I think
Let's come back to the
do what?
group all together.
A proposal. So it's technical support as well. Technical proposal. So here we have you have developed a model for MIT. So based on these needs. So the needs is for information, knowledge, support, for proposals, technical support, writing. And so then you say, well, depending on these needs, what people do I need? Who can help me? And how do I find those people? Classes, projects, so we're starting to develop them. We haven't gotten there.
Ok. Este sí. Sí. Yo no tengo cámara hoy. No tengo. Ya. Let's talk about the exercise. Okay? What's this?
Quite a reflection question.
First of all, let's talk about the exercise only to know your feedback. How well or not, how easy or not, what you have discovered with this exercise.
As we went through the exercise, I don't know if I begin to doubt whether I understood what a model is or not. You know, because when you ask like what are the things you're doing, like, you know, because in a framework that we use to do in development work, like you can identify those actions as sort of strategies already, and then you begin to ask what do you need in order to actually implement those strategies. Then you go say you need resources, what kind of resources, you need technical, you need financial and all that. But those becomes like more like the question of what resources are you gonna achieve in order to achieve this kind of strategies or actions. So I don't consider, I mean, where I come from, it's like, so that's already a model. I mean, like, while it's just a chart or a matrix framework that we used to, I kind of think model more in terms of, when you talk of the sustainability model of the triangulation of culture, economics, and environment, and how the interaction goes, that's why people push that culture should be part of a sustainable development concept. I find that more the way a model is defined, so I was getting really a bit lost in the way.
Okay, you made the question. We cannot answer the question this moment. We need to receive the other comments of other people about the exercise. Okay? But it registered your question. Any person has another kind of comments about the exercise?
Some of the interpretation of the mental map was different depending on people's backgrounds and how they perceived it. Like mine was very design focused and spatially oriented, and some other people who do more community development work were more focused on the resource needs and the sort of the people, power structures. Space didn't even enter into it, for example. So I think it was kind of interesting to see how people's different backgrounds played into how they perceive.
We'll describe his mental model with the different elements.
Yeah, even though they're all MIT, they're
the same object, but they describe differently, no? Yeah. And they are much more aware of some aspects of some elements than other, depending on the background or the social condition too, no? Or the kind of experience they are living in MIT. Yes. Okay. Any other?
I think just, going off of what Brunhilde said, for me, I think it's been, I guess, the more difficult model for me to understand of all the, exercises and things that we've talked about this week.
For the model of MIT or?
Just the concept in general.
And the concept. Yeah. Okay. I think that I will need to treat the concept again. I consider it, but let's go on with the comments.
It was interesting trying to extract sort of commonalities and differences between different models. Sort of like you mentioned, it's good to get up complexity and then try to bring together. It was just I don't know. It's an interesting synthetic process.
Okay. And comparing the different models that people have about the same place, no?
Yeah, and it's helpful for understanding how people interact with things differently or the same too, and then you kind of see where the overlap is and where people diverge. Like, for instance, Lee's has a permeable barrier between MIT and the community, whereas both of you had a much more harder barrier. So it opens the door to analysis or creates a frame for understanding how people engage.
Okay. Before going on, I will treat the concept just a bit. We're talking about mental model, and the task we had to do was to design a model of MIT, like a map. And we may focus our attention only in the map in itself, and this should be a problem, because we can construct a map, we can begin to work for constructing a map, but we not necessarily are describing the model we have in our minds. The mental model is a working map that we have in our minds. No? It's very interesting to see like different persons have different working maps in their minds. No? We can combine in all these mental models for constructing a map of MIT, but this map will not be the model of anyone. The model of each one of us are the group of symbols we use in our mind for moving through the MIT. And we can gather a group of people, we can combine all their experience, and we can construct a generic map that will, in this map, we will group knowledge and use that a lot of people, but this map will not be a mental model. So we can, if we are trying to improve our map, it may help to improve our mental model, but not necessarily. I may have a very sophisticated map, and I will maybe reasoning in the old way. What is important as is what we use as we are making decisions. And the mental model, the map may be highly sophisticated. The mental model needs to have two main characteristics. One, it should be simple enough for being used naturally, without training, without preparation, for being used at the spot of the action. It may be enough simple for that, but at the same time, it should be very robust for enable me to use it in any situations I have. So, in our mind, what we have are not complete maps, but just elements of a map that we combine when we need to make a decision. The mental model we have is something very flexible and adaptable to the situation we have. The exercise of putting it in a visual way is very important for make us aware of that. But what I would like you to be clear is that the map is not your mental model. The map is only a brief description of the mental model. The exercise we made now was based on the model that each one have designed before. So in the group I was, most of the time what we made was to compare the different elements of these models. Okay? Was very useful for us to understand how people perceive the space differently. But we didn't made the groupal exercise of externalizing a mental model, of discovering the mental model. What we made was to compare different mental models. Okay?
Because the idea was... That was your group.
Yes.
That wasn't the
yes, I am talking about my group. Okay? And in the understanding of the process of discovering the model is a different kind of experience that I think that we need to have. The other group, someone of the other group would like to express their experience. I have one person of the group. Okay.
Well, what we did, we briefly went around and everyone explained their mental model that they had developed, and then we chose one to begin to develop more fully, and that was Yuma's model.
Yeah.
So she began to kind of talk about her work and her reason for being at MIT. And basically she's here because she wants to, one of the reasons is she wants to expand resources and knowledge that she needs in order to improve her work in Brazil. And so through various different questions about how she's going about doing that at MIT, we began to identify some of the components that she uses in her head to maneuver in MIT. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if I described it the way you all perceived it.
Should you explain a bit about the process, not about the mental model in itself, but about the process of discovering it?
Claudia can hold it down. Can you do it, Claudia?
Why do I? I think that that's something you guys should be doing. But if you want, I can
Yeah,
say
go
it.
ahead, you do it.
Well, the process was that first, something that was key was to determine what model we were trying to construct.
Mm-hmm.
Because you start by talking about your work, but then you have so many different models you use for different aspects of your work. So we finally were able to determine that what we were going to construct was the model that she uses for organizing her work, her efforts at MIT, for maneuvering herself in MIT and finding connections to resources and people. So once that was decided, then we started asking what she does to find those connections, and why. And so just to, she needs, just one example is she's looking for information or some sort of way to get feedback on her strategies in Brazil. And so she finds classes that are dealing with that, with the subject that she's grappling with, and she finds people. Through those classes, she begins to find people who are interested in the same thing she's interested in. And another way she does this is through identifying projects. Through those projects that have a common subject, she finds the people who are interested in what she's interested in. Things like that.
Okay, so these activities were the starting point for finding the mental model.
Components of the mental model.
Okay, okay. Do you have some difficulty in doing that, or no difficulty?
If I have to do that.
Anyone.
Did you have difficulty? Because you're the one who was experiencing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the difficulty is to, even though MIT has so much research, it's very difficult to connect with to the body. Is that what you would say?
The question is,
If
did you have difficulty
processing
in
that?
this process today, the 15 minutes that we were talking, to start to identify those components in this virtual world that you have?
Yes.
Which kind of difficulties? What is the result difficult for you in the exercise?
I think it's because I didn't really have the model before, and so to place an order, it was difficult.
You have the model, you use it.
I know.
You're just making it explicit.
I think I have the model in my mind, but bring it out is difficult.
Okay.
It's like actually I have a model, but it's to put that model in use in a way that could be clear. It is difficult. Although I was looking your model of following those, I could see that, but how it does not connect to my situation specifically. But it's it's not. I don't. My needs is different. So my way of designing and frame is different. It's like she said, I can't quite see how this model works when so many other components need to be in place.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
an instrument is as good as what you're using it for, you know, depending if you want to draw something, if you use a certain type of pen or pencil, it works out, or if you use something that's too huge, it won't work out. What I'm trying to say here is that, for example, through a spatial map of a campus, for example, you could use it to map out different things. But for example, if what you were working on was a network of people, which is what I understand now that seems to be, then you would need to use a map of a different type of map. For example, a place where you could visualize the people that she works with, so she could actually draw out her network of people. What I'm trying to say is that, for example, in a campus map, where probably most of the people that she is at dusk, but unless she had, like, for example, an office map of all the people that she actually gets in touch with, and she wanted to, like, try to see how she connects with all of them. Unless she had something like that, with a campus map, you couldn't actually visualize what you wanted to see, if that's what you wanted, you know, to see those networks. I would probably use, like, a phone directory would probably be even more useful, like, spread out with a name. Because otherwise, I mean, how do you visualize?
But I think you're talking about the physical, right?
But exactly, but how do you
talking about the
look at
spatial distribution of the people and the existence of the people, right? Identifying the people. Now, what was so interesting about Yuma is that it's the tactic she uses to find those people in a place that is totally foreign to her. So the classes, the projects, these ways to begin conversation with total strangers. To find the strangers and then be like, oh, we have something in common, and be able to talk, And so she's been able to do that in dusk. Now she's got this problem of, how do I do that in Sloan? I know that Sloan, there are lots of people, but now that she's made explicit that one way that she does that is through identifying classes, projects, or other things that help her establish that first link, maybe she can use that model and transpose it to Sloan and start using that,
So the model really is how you sort of get what you want out of MIT, and you have this, you've kind of built up a model through sort of experimentation within Dust, but now you're trying to apply it to a new setting. Is that sort of your process?
Well, it's identifying the need, what it is that needed for this to work, and it's, even if the development of the physical space there works and does, but the economic development will possibly work much better in Sloan's too, because they do a lot of the financials and the business part of it.
Yeah, so your question, the answer is yes to your question.
Okay. Let's try to come back to the cognitive issue. The one difficulty is that you have in your mind the model, but you are not use it in expressing it. No? Okay. Yes, I think that this is a source of difficulty. The other one I was thinking about is the language. What kind of language I will use for expressing my model? Okay? We were improvising some languages. Okay? We try to draw, to put some categories. Some people prefer to use networks and to construct everything as networks. So the laws of the networks constitute their language for expressing this. No? I think that to find a language for expressing is a task that we need to improve. My understanding is that each person should develop his own language in the way he finds more effective, more comfortable with this language. Okay? And I think that should be very instructive for us try to describe our mental model, for example, about MIT, and after that to compare the languages we are using. Say, what kind of expression we use for describing. And I think that another thing that should be useful for us is to discover what kind of events trigger in us the capacity of improving our mental model. What kind of events transforms our mental model? We had not had not time for doing this, but I think that should be a good question. For example, the experience of someone here in MIT who has only one year for being here depends a lot of how fast the person is able to construct a mental model of MIT that increase their possibilities here. Something that may happen is that at the month 11, I began to understand some things that should be very good to have discovered at the second month. Okay? So the question of to learn to improve our mental model, I think that's very important. No? To reflect on it, on this after that.
One example of this is like I've been at MIT as a prospective student. I've been at MIT as a master's student and then as a staff member. Mm-hmm. And each time my mental model has been changed.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, because
exactly.
my perspective is different.
Yes. Yes. The change in mandates, in necessities, in roles, no, in identity, change, transform our mental model. No. I think that for someone who be just a small time in MIT should be very important to learn to improve their mental models very quickly. Okay.
I have a question. For example, when a person changes role, like for example from being team member to being team captain, for example, is that a mental model? The shift in, for example, in the responsibilities and the role that it has to play in relation to that, is that a change in mental model of the situation? Right?
Yes, yes.
Because it changes the way that perceives and acts in respect to what's going on from the outside.
Yeah. In my understanding, one key question is my identity, how I define myself. At the time I defined myself, my mind began to make a search that will enable me to construct a mental model. So it's very important for improving learning in people is not to teach them anything, but to analyze their identity. Okay? And the impact of their identity in what is permitted and what is not permitted. What I should understand, what I should not. I did not need to understand. Okay, I have one very brief exercise for you, 2 minutes exercise.
I have a question actually. What if they can I propose?
Yes, my idea is that they should write it
right
down.
Now?
Yes. Okay?
All right.
And yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah. Please give me 3. Yes, you can. It's just for you to I finish. Okay. You answer these questions and give them to us. Okay? For us will be very important because this is the midterm evaluation of the course. Okay? But you evaluating us, not we evaluating you.
Would it be better if we took this over the weekend so we could, just writing this in 2 minutes is going to be a little hard to get.
It is her idea. You prefer?
I would prefer. I can't give you good feedback in 2 minutes.
Oh, yes? Okay. If you prefer, I will accept your suggestion.
What you could do is just email it to me, by
yes.
Sunday night.
Okay.
And then we also had some other questions that if you could email to us, that would be great as well. These are just reflection questions regarding the exercise today. The second group, the group that was with me, will be able to answer these questions better than the other group, but maybe not. Who knows? See what you can do. See what you can do. It's one set of questions. It's for those people who were the protagonists. Protagonists meaning that they were the ones who were constructing their own mental models. And then the other set of questions is for those people who were the facilitators. You're helping others construct their mental models or watching others. Maybe there's a question there that says, what did you do that helped the person begin to identify their mental model? If there's something that someone else did that you think helped the person identify their mental model, you can write that as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that you did as a person.
A last question. If each one of you would like to discuss any issue about the course, you can send emails to us, to me or to Claudia, for discussing something that was not enough clear during the class. Okay?
So the evaluation, if you can email it to us before Monday, that would be great. And then the other part, the reflection on the exercise, just type up your responses to the questions and bring them to class on Monday.
Do you have any more copies?
Yes.
Oh.
Lots.
Yeah. Okay, Claudia.
It's just, I don't know if you're going to deal with this later.
Okay.
Next week. But I'm still not clear about how do you discover your mental model.
Okay.
I'm not clear about that.
Okay.
At all.
If I could make one suggestion, that I think it would be helpful for us, perhaps as a class, to do one particular exercise or one particular task, so then everyone is in a pretty common frame, and then we can sort of pick apart mental models. Because for me, it's like we all have a different experience of MIT. We're all trying to get something pretty different out of here. We have a different way of experiencing it, and even though it's, I don't know, I just found it hard. I don't know if this is an experience you guys shared or not, but I just found it hard to try to dig into those mental models without the shared frame. I don't know.
Yeah.
I find I work better in a really concrete context, like when I'm in a task, and I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of not articulating myself
What
very well.
is your suggestion?
If we had a common project as a class, it could be something pretty small, and then as we go through that project, everyone's kind of mental models, we could try to debug our mental models or make those explicit as we go through the common task.
Okay.
Like almost a small project.
Instead of dividing the class into groups.
Well, we could divide it into groups, but we all have a common project. Like what we did Thursday, I think was pretty close to that. We said, here's a graph. What's the problem and what's your solution? And I felt like that was really effective because at least we all had different ways of looking at it, but we all at least had a very common sort of object to look at and a common sort of thought process. So.
Okay. The same project. Or the same object.
Yeah, if we all had the same object all the time, it could be different on different days, or it could be one that we work with over the course of 2 weeks, or maybe.
Okay, we try to incorporate your idea. Okay. Next week we work most of our time in reframing, but we will think about this. Okay. Thank you very much.